Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Thursday, the 2nd of October. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by a full-strength squad. First of all, Jonny McFarlane. How goes it, Jonny?
Yeah, good, mate. I've been off ill for the last 3 days, so I'm raring to be back. I'm glad to be back and feeling a lot better. So let's get talking about Rangers. Anything been happening?
Stevie Clifford also joins us. How goes it, Stevie?
Good, thank you, mate. Hope everybody is well. And do we say looking forward to tonight's game? I'm not sure if we do at this moment in time, but it is match day at least. So plenty to discuss. And a little matter of yesterday's Rangers Review breaking news, which raised an eyebrow or two, didn't it? So
not half, absolutely.
Always the way with Rangers nowadays. They don't do it in half measures.
They don't, that's for sure. Let's give it a quick word for our podcast sponsors before we dive right in, folks. Willow's Fencing. If you need a new fence, these are the guys to call. The Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust. Proud partners of the Rangers Review. They've got over 20 years of experience in the trade. No job is too big or too small for these guys. They offer free consultations and you get 10% off with the codes Rangers Review over on their website, which is willows-fencing.com. Right, let's delve in, shall we? Now, Russell Martin addressed the news in his press conference. I was on with Chris yesterday after said press conference. He's over in Graz for us for the game tonight. But I'm keen to get your guys' thoughts on the news, of course, that we broke yesterday, that Rangers are set to appoint the son of sporting director Kevin Thelwell as the club's new head of recruitment. He's been head of technical scouting and loan management at Norwich since July of last year. He's previously worked at Wolverhampton Wanderers when his father was there. And he is one of a number of alterations in the backroom staff as part of the restructuring of the football department. Everton's Nathan Fisher will also move up north as the club's new head scout. And as well as that, David McGregor has been promoted to the role of men's head kit manager. And currently the head of Academy Sports Science, Jamie Ramsden, now becomes the new head of performance, while James Monty will join as data insights lead this month. As soon as I seen that news yesterday, Jonny, I immediately thought that it would go down like a lead balloon with the fan base, a fractured fan base already as it is. Now, by all accounts, he's done a reasonable job down there at Norwich, but that's by the by. The optics of this do not look good with regards to Kevin Thelwell and the club at this moment in time. What do you make of it?
Yeah, that's the key word, optics. They're terrible. I've worked in journalism now for nearly a decade, Derek. Every company that I've worked for has policies in place to stop fathers hiring sons and brothers hiring sisters and all the rest of it, because these situations obviously often end badly and cause unrest in the ranks. That's why big corporate companies have these policies in place. I do not think it's a good look. I know it happens in football. You know, Rangers were linked with a manager before they went for Russell Martin and Ancelotti Jr., and we know how he got his start. His dad, obviously, a major figure in football, and Davide was brought alongside him into a position that he wouldn't have got if he wasn't his son. But regardless, given that Rangers under this new regime was supposed to all be about professionalism, doing things correct, no longer a jobs for the boys scenario. It was going to be data-led. It was going to be the best people for the best positions. You can understand why the fan base is very, very angry looking at this. And it's not just this appointment in terms of Robbie Thelwell. There's the other appointments being linked to previous roles that Thelwell has had, people that he knows. And it does beg the question, how far and how thorough have these recruitment drives been if there is this link directly to the sporting director? We all look back in the period where Michael Beale was talking about his recruitment drive. I remember asking him the question about it, and he said, you'll be able to link every single player back to me. And at the time, a lot of us sort of took a double take at that and thought, is that right? Is that the way to run a club the size of Rangers? And this is just another example of it. And before I stop talking about this, I just want to say we don't know about Robbie Thelwell, about how good he is or how bad he is. He may be absolutely terrific, and he has had good jobs in good clubs. But it doesn't take away that the optics of this are just terrible. It's a PR problem. You can bet your bottom dollar that every newspaper in the land, every columnist in the land is going to be writing about this and is going to be filleting the club over it. So you look at the reaction of the fans as well, and you add those two factors together, you have to ask yourself, was this worth it because of the optics? Clearly Kevin Thelwell thinks it is. Clearly he thinks that his son will add something that no one else can. I would ask a simple question of Kevin Thelwell. I would just pose him this. Are you far enough away from your own son that you can see the woods from the trees? Can you be dispassionate about your own son? Because I can't be dispassionate about my kid. So how on earth can he make a dispassionate business decision when it comes to his son and his son's talents? I don't think it's right. And it doesn't matter to me if Thelwell took himself completely out of the scenario or not. It's just not something that a club the size of Rangers should be doing.
I agree with you, Jonny, on that front. Lots of comments come in. Job for the boys. It's literally job for his boy. So apparently it's the appointment marks the conclusion of a thorough recruitment process for a new head of player recruitment. I'm a bit dubious about that. Stevie, your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with Jonny entirely, which both saddens and shocks me somewhat. I don't really know what to say other than, maybe he just doesn't like him, Derek, and just thinks, come up and join me because it's so wonderful up here so that he can get a pan in as well. It looks awful. We done an internal football review and nobody knows what that says because we've never been told, but the square root of it basically is, and whether this is right or not, this is how it looks. And the simplistic view from the support is you're hiring a bunch of pals that you already knew and your son. And it looks absolutely woeful. And we're supposed to be told that an extensive recruitment drive, that's the best they can come up with. The new academy coach is rumoured to be Kevin Thelwell's pal from down south as well. And when you keep adding all this sort of stuff up, it looks awful. We are filling positions with people that he knows. And it's not like at this moment in time you can categorically state that Kevin Thelwell's hit the ground running and is doing a fantastic job as well, because the scrutiny is very much on him, his appointment being Russell Martin, and his players currently performing in a way that has Rangers 8th. So no, this does not look great. It's really difficult to add much more to what Jonny says or disagree with him in any way, because it looks awful. Derek, and the fans have every single right to be questioning this. And it's not so much, as Jonny pointed out, it's not so much, Robbie Thelwell and what he can bring. We should be scrutinising exactly what's happening at our football club because it's right in front of our noses. I really don't know what else to say. I'm delighted for the boys that have been promoted internally. Davey and Jamie are good lads and, really likeable boys, and I'm pleased for them. But, we've genuinely went down south to his old club, cap in hand, nicked what we could from there, given them £8 million for a project striker. And, the side of you argues, how much are Everton really willing to try and keep those people and were they fighting for them, etc., etc. So, we've landed with them. And the thing about hiring his son, he's 26 years old. Does he really have the experience to come up here and be our head of recruitment? I'm not sure he does. Is our level now, poaching from Norwich City? No disrespect to them, because every single where we go, it's everything we do, more or less, this summer has all been taken from the English market. And I'm not sure that we have an extensively good record from down there either. So, there's loads of questions, I'm afraid. I am not thinking favourably about this because it's impossible to. And as Jonny summed up, it's not a great look at all, Derek. I'm sorry for being negative, but
No,
It's
the
just
vast
not great.
majority think this, I think, Stevie. My issue, I mean, the fans have taken aim at Patrick Stewart and Russell Martin recently, Johnny, but should they be taking aim at Kevin Thelwell at this moment in time? I think, as Stevie mentioned there, I think that the transfers this summer, jury is out, and that's been kind on a good number of them, but these appointments looks very much like, yeah, as he said, they're jobs for the boys, guys that he knows that he's brought in and surrounded himself with. Fans, I certainly am looking at it and going, is this the right guy to lead Rangers at this point in time, given what we've seen so far? Should we be cutting him some slack, do you reckon?
Well, I think the reality of this is that if Rangers fans want to see change, the first place that change has to be made is the manager. And that's where I think the primary problems are right now. I look at that team and listen, this could start a whole nother podcast of what I'm seeing when I look at that team. But to me, Russell Martin is the first thing to solve. You're not going to replace a manager, a director of football, and a CEO all in short order. That's not going to happen. I would say that Kevin Thelwell hasn't had a very good start in terms of the optics of what we're seeing, the evidence that's in front of us, the quality of recruitment. But I would also say, to be fair and to be balanced, what we're seeing yesterday should have been a good news story. If it wasn't Robbie Thelwell, I think it would have been seen as a good news story because it's a tangible investment. And once again, you can't say that Andrew Kavanagh hasn't backed this club with some serious cash. It's more bodies into that backroom team to buff it up, to make sure it's got a strength and depth, to make sure they've got a level of manpower that's probably akin to maybe a Premier League club. You think that Niels Coppin was doing this job on his own, and now you've got Kevin Thelwell, Dan Purdy, and Robbie Thelwell with a head scout underneath them. So Rangers are investing clearly in the infrastructure of the club, and that should be a good news story. Incidentally, and you know, there is no doubt that Nathan Fisher comes from Everton, but I spoke to a source, worked at the highest level of English football yesterday, and had a chat about Nathan Fisher. And he had previously worked with him at Middlesbrough, and he described him as an outstanding scout with an eye for a player. And he identified two guys that he'd actually seen and recommended to Borough that they didn't sign, and they were Brian Mbumo and the lad Wissa who's now at Newcastle. So he said, look, this guy has no stake in the game. He's not trying to cook anything for Rangers to make it look good or anything like that. Someone who is not involved with the club at all. And he said, look, this guy is top notch, and that's a good hire. The other one I would say is I know James Mont, whose previous role was with StatsBomb. Obviously, the Rangers Review has a partnership with StatsBomb. So it's really world-class data. It sets us apart from any other organisation because we have it. And it's something that we've had since the inception of the site 4 years ago. And that's why Josh has really been able to dig into detail that no one else can surrounding the underlying metrics of Rangers. And James was heavily involved with StatsBomb and has been for a number of years, and I've dealt with him personally. And what I would say is he's exactly the kind of person you would want at Rangers. Someone who really, really sweats the detail, who will leave no stone unturned to try and understand what's going wrong and what's going right and why. The kind of young, forward-thinking guy that will absolutely be an asset to the club. So I would say, based on that information, there is some positives there, and it's good to see that they are investing. But at the same time, you have to balance that out by saying, how can you sit here and justify the appointment of the director of football's son? You can't. And that's up to Rangers to justify that. And it's up to Robbie himself to justify that through absolutely superb performance. And he'll need to do that because the minute there's a bad signing, the spotlight is going to be shone directly on him. And I think it's important to say this is not the first time this has happened in Scottish football. You know, if you look not too far across the city, you've had a scenario where nepotism has been fairly rife. You know, you've got a 34% owner of Celtic, and Dermot Desmond, whose son basically is heavily involved in the running of the club, I would say, and looks to be the guy that's going to be a legacy owner, if that's the word you would use. And then you had Mark Lawwell, Peter Lawwell's son, who was heavily involved with, you guessed it, recruitment at Celtic. So it does happen in football, but I think anyone at Rangers should have looked at the level of opprobrium and upset and pressure that Mark Lawwell was under through his entire period at Celtic to know this is a very, very, very dicey situation to put yourself into unprompted. And especially when Rangers are going through a period of really, really poor performance, of total flux on and off the pitch, massive changes everywhere you look. Why add pressure to yourself for a role like this? I can't for the life of me understand it.
Yeah.
Jonny says, Derek, we need to get rid of Russell Martin, which, obviously is spot on. That's the first problem. But look who's going to be hiring his replacement. What are we going to end up with? Kevin Thelwell's uncle? So I don't know, mate. It's difficult to disagree with Jonny, but how that looks and what we'll end up with, everything points to ending up with somebody like Sean Dyche, who again is his pal and he knows him down south. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying what we're going to end up with.
Isn't there an onus on Patrick Stewart to step in here? We've all got kids. Me and you've got kids, and we know that it's hard to be objective about your kids. So you can understand Kevin Thelwell thinks his son's brilliant and his son will make a big impact on Rangers. But surely it's on Patrick Stewart to step in and say, Kevin, hold on here. This is a disaster.
I think so. But I mean,
it's not only unfair on the other staff, it's unfair on your boy, because he's going to be held to a completely different standard to any normal Rangers employee behind the scenes.
Yeah. Stephen says, will he fire his son if it isn't working? I would imagine no.
Well, he won't fire Russell, so there's no chance he's firing his son.
No. It's a Tuesday number. Bluebells or Blue says, this is far too much conflict of interest for Thelwell to oversee his own son effectively. It's absolute nonsense. Chipperoonie with an interesting point says, what does a head of recruitment actually mean? The Rangers have beefed up behind the scenes there. I mean, you've got Dan Purdy as technical director. You never have a head of recruitment, the sporting director, and Kevin Thelwell. There's a lot of bodies in there, Stevie.
Well, yeah, there certainly is. We wanted a structure. They're certainly putting one in place, which you can't argue with. How it'll work is, if this turns out to be absolutely fabulous and, we start unearthing gems and, recruitment turns into something far more positive, then great. But it's only natural to be sceptical because of the cycle we're in as a support and what we're watching, guys. So it's difficult at this moment in time not to look at it without questioning it and without thinking, Bluebells is right there. And Jonny said that the things that he's right with as well. And as much as, it's actually, I've sat here and laughed because it sounds ridiculous. It really does sound ridiculous. And I think that's the biggest thing. And what Rangers fans now is, everyone's seen the picture online, 0 days since our nonsense. It's just every single thing that we seem to do isn't straightforward. It isn't, oh, well, that makes sense. That's a good decision. It's always, why are you doing that? And when it gets to that stage, which it is, it's almost like fans are starting to go, well, if we went from the fire, and straight into the fire, straight into the frying pan with this, and that's easy for me to say, but that's how it looks, So it's difficult at this very, very moment, to think anything other than why have we chosen to do this? So, head of recruitment, head of scouting, chief scout, they all report in some way up to Kevin Thelwell. What they individually are going to do, we don't know. But you asked, should Patrick Stewart step in? That would require Patrick Stewart then to show leadership and accountability. And at this moment in time, he's very much under scrutiny as well, because all we've seen is a number of high-profile, questionable moments with him. And he's only been here the best part of a year. So, no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel or look great, I'm afraid. And as I said, it's nothing personal to these guys, but the optics to us as a support, very simplistically, is it's your pals that you already know, and it's your son.
Yeah.
Where's the recruitment process there?
Fans are turning away Jonny, at the moment. There's a lot of apathy setting in. It's incredible to think from the high of the takeover in the summer to go from there to this. It's quite incredible, really. And fans are quite rightly concerned about the future of where this club is headed.
Yeah, and I think that part of this, we have to be a little bit careful in that we all know Rangers so well. You know, it's such a big part of our lives at the Rangers Review. We've known the club since we were little boys, each and every one of us. And so we completely intrinsically understand all the elements of everything that happens. And I think part of the problem here is there isn't enough, and I genuinely believe this, and I know people say I'm anachronistic when I start talking about this, but I don't think there's enough Rangers people in Rangers. There needs to be a blend of people that understand the club and understand the country and understand the league to allow these new guys to settle in quickly and to allow them to understand the framework of the decision-making in the context of the wider noise that occurs around Rangers. Listen, we're part of that. Can't deny it. And I feel like a lot of this that is happening is about guys who are a little bit naive in terms of not in their personal lives, but in terms of just how Rangers works.
Yeah.
Making decisions that they don't fully understand the ramifications of and trying to run Rangers like it's a Brentford or a Brighton. And this absolutely boils my blood. It really does. Because Rangers is never going to be a Brentford or a Brighton. And you know what? Every single fan here shouldn't want them to be. Because those are clubs that are absolutely delighted to be 10th in the EPL season in, season out. And will it doesn't really matter if they win, lose, or draw unless there's relegation or a European spot on the line. This is not what this club is. And I feel like when I look at the events that are happening around Rangers, I'm constantly just wowed by the lack of sort of nuance to what appears to be the understanding of all these elements. And you would have thought these guys, with the experience they have, with the know-how when it comes to running sports organisations that runs right through that 49ers. And Parag Marat has already been in charge of a huge club down south with a passionate and fervent fan base in Leeds that is also demanding of a level of success to some extent, not to the same extent, but to some extent. And I would have thought that would have bled through rather more quickly and rather more effectively than it seems to have to the operation up here. And while I'm patient to an extent over what I understand will be teething issues with change, to quote Russell Martin, and I've been quoting this quite a lot, change is pain. But there's only so much that I think a fan base like this one can accept when it comes to decisions that are just so palpably going to cause you problems.
Yeah.
And time will tell if they're quick learners, but they're going to need to be. They're going to seriously need to be. I think I've made it quite clear what I feel about Russell Martin. I've said it time and time again on here. I'm not on that often, but every time I'm on, I say Russell Martin is not the manager of Rangers. He's never going to be. And that's a decision that I have to make. I understand why they're giving him time. I don't think you can sack a director of football or move on a director of football so quickly. You have to give him the opportunity to lay down the foundations and make mistakes. I do think this is a mistake. I know why people are really upset, but I think context, I'm trying to put everything in context. You know, it's not the big issue right now. The big issue right now is getting a manager that can galvanise the support. The most important thing at any football club is the relationship between the team and the fans. Yeah. If you have that, you have something. And if you don't have that, you're in deep, deep trouble. And this club, at the moment, this team has no connection with the fan base. Yeah. You need a manager that can give them that. And until that happens, then the rest of it, I'm afraid, is moot.
Well, Parag Marati did say that Russell Martin's a good Ranger man, so I'd imagine he should be well aware of the team that he's at this moment.
You've got to give him that. Come on.
Neil Jameson sums up what many are thinking. He says, I've been watching Rangers since 1979. I've never been so scunnered about them as I am now. Moving on to Russell Martin, Stevie, his press conference yesterday. We'll get to the game shortly, but he talked about recent abuse and fans having a go at him. He says he walked straight down the tunnel on Sunday, because he wanted the players to enjoy it. We deserve to win the game, but I want the players to enjoy it, and then people choose to turn their attention to me. I just wish at that point they could enjoy their team winning and the lads can enjoy it a bit more rather than having the energy towards me. The only other thing I find sad is when I see the kids standing next to their dads and sticking their fingers up at me and swearing at me. I don't feel particularly sad about it. For me, I just feel like for the cycle to go on, and I understand. I'm here. We've made mistakes. There's some tough moments, but we're giving everything we've got to improve the club, as is Kevin, as is Patrick, as is the owners as well. What do you make of that? The sort of abuse that has been directed at Russell Martin, is it overstepped a line for you?
I'm a wee bit confused because he says quite a lot, this isn't about me. And I don't like making it about me, and spends quite a lot of time talking about himself. It's part and parcel of it, Derek. It's, fans pay the right to give their opinion, and as long as it doesn't go above chanting and things from the crowd, then unfortunately it's part of football, isn't it? Is it great? The things he's describing? No, not really. But I don't really know what else he would expect.
Yeah, it shouldn't be in the position. I don't think
regardless of where we think and the levels it is, and a lot of the stuff, by the way, that you read online and a lot of the comments and everything else are way OTT, and I think everybody understands that. But if you're going to be moaning about, the fans chanting what they are, which is quite a straightforward chant, it isn't in any way. We've heard, look, what I will say is we've heard a lot more and a lot worse towards players and everything else. And I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying that football is that environment, isn't it, where things like that are said and done. Is it sad? Well, arguably, but he's a Rangers manager or the Rangers head coach, and it comes with the territory, unfortunately. So all he has to say during these press conferences are, I want to focus on what's happening on the pitch. It's my job to make sure Rangers are getting results. And when these results come, hopefully people's feelings are changing. But I'll concentrate on what we're doing on the pitch because that's all I can do. But he consistently says it's not about me and subsequently makes it about him quite a lot. So I'd rather we just focused on what was going on the pitch. I'd rather that Russell Martin turned his attention to making Rangers difficult to beat and especially ahead of Graz tonight, because if we set up the way we did last week against Genk and as open and give away as many chances, then unfortunately, it could end up being another disastrous away trip in Europe under Russell Martin. So I'm more concerned about what happens tonight other than what the fans are chanting, Derek, in all honesty. And that's not meaning to sound heartless or anything else. It's just that it comes with the territory of what you do and where you are. We all get a plethora of online abuse, all three of us, and we're told, well, that's what happens when you stick your head above the parapet and talk about Rangers online. Russell Martin's the Rangers head coach. It comes with the territory. It comes with the job. So concentrate on fixing Rangers on the park and ahead of tonight. And that's all I'm really interested in.
Derek, one of the great Rangers stories is about a guy who scored 355 goals.
Well, that leads me on to Chaparini's point there, Johnny. It sums it up quite rightly.
Ali McCoist was going through a tough period and had the entire Copeland Road singing that song about him, to him. And he knuckled down, showed mental strength, and I think it's fair to say he won everyone round in the end. And Ali's been talking about this a little bit recently, and I thought it was really, really interesting, an insight into his character. When he said sometimes when he scored a goal, he would look into that end and look at the faces and the joy on their faces and think, were you one of the beeps that was singing that about me? And I think great sportsmen, truly elite sportsmen with that kind of mentality, they use it as fuel. These setbacks, they use this kind of abuse as a way to push them forward. I think most people have watched the amazing Netflix documentary The Last Dance about Michael Jordan and how he sort of manufactured disputes with other players in his head almost to try and psych himself up for individual games, and how he took every little thing that was said in the media as a personal slight, and that was what drove him. And I think Russell Martin, if he's got anything about him, that's how he'll be using this. Now, what I'm talking about is the chants. When it comes to people abusing managers on the street or anything physical or anything like that. Obviously, it's completely abhorrent, completely wrong, and absolutely is the kind of thing that must stop. This is football, guys. It's not life or death. And that should be something that goes without saying. But when we're talking about the basic normal football chants, shouts, swearing, gestures, be it fingers or hand gestures or whatever, that is just what happens at the football. And he knows that, and we know that, and everyone watching this knows that. And when it comes to that, that's what fans do, and they've been doing time immemorial, and it's not going to change.
Yeah, I'm conscious of the time, Stevie. We've got a big game tonight. Rangers hoping to get off the mark in the Europa League, as are Sturm Graz after losing their opening game away to Michelin. Do you see Rangers getting off the mark tonight? How do you see it going?
Well, no, because the evidence of it shows that we're not capable. I sincerely hope we do, Derek, and I sincerely hope we do. But just as I kind of said a couple of minutes ago, that if we set up and we're as open as we were when we went to Panathinaikos, Pilsen, and certainly Bruges, because remember, we've lost every European trip under him so far and could have lost them all extremely heavily. If you look at Bruges at home, if you look at Genk at home,
to be fair, it was a draw, wasn't
it? Sorry,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
But the chances given away and everything else, that's
it was a battering. It was, that was a battering.
Yeah. I actually, in my head, I've chalked that down to a defeat that shows you where I kind of am.
It felt like that, Stevie, on the night.
Well, it was, we'd actually got a really good result against a decent team and through a difficult tie, but it felt like there were so many red flags, which is why I chalked it down to that. But the issue is that we've got, Derek, is that, we all want us to win. We're all hoping we win, but it's hope. It's not based on what we are seeing. We have to somehow take 20, 25 good minutes against Livingston and turn that into 90 minutes. We have to somehow be more pragmatic. We have to somehow stop leaking chances the way we do. And that, at the moment, it feels like a really difficult ask. So, fingers crossed, absolutely. But I would be lying if I said I would go into it with any degree of confidence. And what's really sad about it is in recent years, Genk and Sturm Graz, you would have said, we'll get 6 points here. And if we don't win tonight, and I would say even a draw is not enough, if we don't win tonight, you're then facing down the barrel of Braga, Roma and Porto. And where are you going to pick up points there? Suddenly even getting into the playoff is going to be extremely difficult. And we can't afford to keep sacrificing £1 million every couple of weeks in Europe because of where we are. So there's a whole lot more to play here than just a result for me tonight. The positive side of it, we need to see more. We need to try and build on things. But how realistic is it, Derek? Unfortunately, at this moment, it's not very. And I'm not heading there tonight thinking, we're going to get a result. I'm heading into this game thinking, I hope we can play well. I hope we can get a result. I hope we can try and do something. But it's not based on much. Sorry.
I take a point right now. As Chris mentioned last night, Johnny, Rangers will concede tonight. I think that's a given. So you need to score 2 goals to have any chance. And the amount of chances that are being created doesn't
on that, Derek, before Johnny comes in, 21 away games, 42 goals conceded. I seen that stat the other day. No clean sheets in that length of time. That's frightening.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about the game, which I wasn't aware of before Chris actually got out there, was that Sturm Graz have had major problems with their pitch. And Chris's video shows you it looks like something from the 1980s. It's rutted, it's bobbly. And trying to play this accurate passing football on that is going to be really, really challenging. What I don't want to hear from Russell Martin post-match is the pitch affected us. Just like when he was talking about against Livingston in the second half, the pitch got sticky. Yeah. Well, it's a plastic pitch. It's going to be sticky. And we did warn you about that. And anyone who understands Scottish football would have warned you about that. Steven Gerrard used to always famously go quite long, didn't he, when he used to play in Livingston because of that. Because there's no point in trying to play crossfield passes or knock it about quickly because you can't really do it. Certainly on their old pitch. I know they've got a new pitch, but again, Russell Martin did say that it got sticky in the second half. So I'm hoping that he takes that into account when he comes up with his game plan, because they say insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over, even when you get the same result. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, we'll see. But I have my doubts, and I have expectations that we're going to hear about the pitch come the end of the game.
Yeah, strap yourselves in, folks.
I thought when you said there, Johnny, I don't want to hear from Russell Martin after the game, you were just going to stop and say that. Like, that's fair enough.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I still want to hear what is what the perception of the game is. I think it's important that those of us who have the privilege of getting to speak to Russell Martin are holding him to account, and that's the case. Yeah. Regardless of who's the manager. It was the same when it was Michael Beale. It was the same, Stevie, with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I always tell people, when you get criticised on social media, I know you take a lot of stick, about questions and things like that, is, for example, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was one of Stevie's heroes. And believe me when I say that tough questions were asked, and sometimes in the press room, it was uncomfortable because Gio was such a nice guy and had done such a good job in so many ways. So it's important, though, that managers are asked tough questions and that they are held to account, because I know we said earlier about football not being life and death, and it isn't, but it's extremely important to a lot of people, and it's a huge part of a lot of people's lives, and we shouldn't ever underestimate the joy and the happiness and quite often the despair that it brings to people's lives. And because of that, the manager always needs to be held to account by a media that's asking the questions that the fans want to hear.
Yeah, just on Livy Chaperoon, he says, no wonder it was sticky when they were watering the fans instead. Yeah, that was offside by Livy. You've got to say
I
that.
don't think that was deliberate, to be fair, but wow, that looked uncomfortable, didn't it?
Yeah, to say the least. Right, that will do us there. Big thank you to Stevie, as ever, and to Johnny for joining us on the show. And thank you to you all for tuning in and interacting as well, folks. Just a heads up, Chris is at the Mercure Arena for us tonight, so he'll be joining me around about 6:45. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, isn't it, tonight? Yep, 9 o'clock over there. So join us when we'll discuss what the team will be, and we'll build up to said game. Until then, enjoy your Thursday afternoon, whatever you are up to, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.